Hey guys, it's Doug here, coming to you with yet another video helping you transform from pawn to player in this game we call life. In today's one, guys, I'm going to be discussing some more ontological mathematics. Specifically, we're going to be discussing the basic premise of the universe. Now, with ontological mathematics, it's the idea that numbers and math dictate everything in the universe. Everything is just math and numbers. Now, with that in mind, we should be able to come up with a basic premise for the universe. If everything is math, we should be able to logically and rationally explain why we're here, why the universe works. Now, if you think about how many moving parts a universe must contain, there has to be some logic, there has to be some intelligent force driving it. Otherwise, pure chaos would erupt. You'd have random things falling out of the sky, appearing and disappearing. There'll be all these properties that you can't rely on because tomorrow it might change, right? So math and logic, it's one of the only ways, it's the only way, I should say, that you could possibly describe how the universe continues to function with an order. There's order and there's reason behind everything in the universe. It's not just random, otherwise, like I said, pure chaos would erupt. Now, because this is a mathematical reality, you can think of every being as a mathematical point. Like a point on a grid, if you remember back to math class. Now, Leibniz would refer to it as a monad, and in most spiritual circles today, we'd refer to it as our soul. It's the eternal part of us that keeps existing, beyond this incarnation game, and will continue to exist forever and always has existed. So if you don't feel like saying point or monad, you can use soul just to get the basic idea across. However, it is more accurate to refer to it as a monad or a point. Now, each monad or point in the universe is attempting to become the best version of itself, a godly form of itself. Now, we do this through various ways, right? Because we incarnate in many different ways and many different forms, thousands, if not millions, if not trillions of ways, in order to reach this point of godliness. And that's every last thing in the universe. So, even that rival at work that you don't like, even the trees, even the rocks. And that's pretty wild to think, how could a rock become godly? How could a tree become godly? But it's actually really fascinating that there's consciousnesses affixed and incarnate into these objects as well. As someone who's done a lot of past life readings, I can tell you I've done past life readings where the being was incarnated in trees, and they could jump from tree to tree, and they would hang out in parks and just view people, and they could get every possible angle on the park because they could jump from tree to tree, almost like they had every possible security camera angle they could possibly do. And an incarnation like that can be incredibly rewarding for a person, even if it seems boring now. From a human perspective, there's so much going on that we don't even perceive, but everything is moving towards this godly state. Now, what's interesting is the universe is designed so that we're always making progress. Now, sometimes we sidestep, and sometimes you even go backwards, you regress a little bit, usually for the sake of learning, though, because everything is in a cycle. So when you start to decline and decay, that's actually, it's a natural component of life, because that allows you to be built back up again. You follow a sine wave, and that was also a huge thing in ontological mathematics as well. The idea of the sine wave, but that's probably for another video at this point. Now, how do we achieve progress on this in this God game? How does the universe make sure we continue to evolve? Well, it's through our biggest need and our biggest want. Now, if we break down it to the most simple terms, we put societal taboos and norms to the side. What are the two base, what do you want most and what do you need most? Well, what you need most in order to live is to learn. You have to keep accruing knowledge. When you first incarnate, you literally have to learn how to walk. You have to learn, I can't hold my breath. You have to learn to eat. And, then it gets far more complicated from there. But you see how even the first few moments of your life, you're learning. And there's even that phrase that, if you aren't learning, then you start dying. Or, for I assure you guys have heard multiple permutations of that phrase, but it's the idea that learning is so important to life that you're basically dying when you stagnate and you stop learning. So that's what you need to do most. And you need to learn, God's all-knowing, so it kind of makes sense you would have to start learning everything to become God. Now, what do you want most? If you, again, push all of the societal nonsense to the side, well, you really want an orgasm, don't you? Now, orgasm is a very interesting thing. It's a very universal thing that all incarnates have. And I'm pretty sure even discarnates orgasm as well. That's almost a topic for another day as well, orgasm in general. But what orgasm allows you to do is it allows you to connect to source. And if you think about it, orgasm allows people to reproduce, you create life. Of course, the universe has to keep going. There needs to be more bodies for you to then reincarnate into after this life is finished, right? So orgasming, it allows you to connect to source, which opens up psychic abilities, offers you healing, offers you wisdom, because source runs through you, and one of the easiest ways to connect is through orgasm. Now, you don't necessarily need to orgasm to connect to source, but as soon as you orgasm, boom, you're right there. So it's by far the easiest method. Now, of course, if you think about how much we desire orgasm and actually how enjoyable it is to learn as well, you can see how the universe has programmed everything to keep evolving through these two mechanisms. Now, as we continue to evolve, there's eventually the universe reaches what's called the omega point in ontological mathematics, and that's where every last monad or point becomes its godly version. Then it's a universe full of perfect gods. And that's amazing. And I said full, every last being. So the one known as Satan will actually be the final monad who gets it together and becomes godly. If you think about Satan like an anti-God, it might take a universe full of gods to convince him. But if that's our final task at the end of the day, then that's what we're going to do. Because this omega point must be reached in which every last point in the universe is godly. Now, once we've finished this God game, we're basically all there, and you could think of it almost as one mass orgy or orgasm where we're all perfect, and it's like amazing to be there. And it's just the most blissful experience ever. Now, the interesting thing about pure constant bliss is that actually becomes hellish after a while. The stagnation of nothing happening is actually detrimental after a time. If you've ever been on vacation for an extended period, what happens towards the end of the week, or, say it's a 7 or 10 day trip, right? What tends to happen near the end? You tend to kind of like run out of things to do, you get bored, and you're actually anxious to start going home and start tackling, your life again. Maybe you're younger and haven't done too many vacations, but like a summer break from school, chances are you start to run out of things to do and you're wishing for something to challenge you once again, right? Because challenges kind of suck in the moment, But then you always look back and say, well, I'm glad that happened because I learned and and grew, and I gained something from that, right? So after we all bliss out in the omega point for however long we decide to do that, which actually probably wouldn't be all that long, because we're all godly and we realize, hey, let's actually, learn and improve here. So after we bliss out at the omega point, the universe actually opts to, separate again. We all split back off into these lower fractals, and we start the God game over again. The whole game resets, and we strive to do it again. And the reason we do this again is, so we're not bored. Because if you were just purely blissed out all day, that would become very boring. You need the contrast of, here's a challenge, here's a rival, here's this thing I have to overcome, to actually make your wins and your triumphs satisfying. If you just won every time, it's pretty boring. I don't think Mike Tyson would actually want to box a bunch of old ladies over and over. If you've ever played the easiest difficulty on a video game and you got bored in 5 minutes because there's just no challenge, you understand this concept pretty well. It's just one of those things that we need something to push us to strive to get better, so we're willing to put up with these incarnation games in the first place. And by the, after blissing out in the omega point, we're ready to hop back into the trenches of a place like Earth and, go through all this BS again. Because at the end of the day, this BS is pretty fun. I mean, if you think about your favorite stories, they're not just boring, Superman doesn't fight someone who stole bubblegum from a convenience store, right? He's not going to fly halfway across the city and punch someone in the face for that. No, he's fighting these maniacal villains that are trying to take over entire planets, right? That's interesting to us. At the end of the day, there's a lot of horrific stuff going on Earth, but at the end of the day, that kind of stuff adds flavor to these storylines and ultimately allows us to progress through this God game and reach that omega point. But anyway, guys, that's about it for me. That's the basic premise of the universe explained. You are becoming God. Everyone you know and love is becoming God. Even the people you hate are becoming God. And that's kind of a beautiful thing, that we all have that in common. And of course, we're not gods yet. We're, at least these fractals of us, right? Because we all have godly aspects already, of course. But because of that, we can kind of give each other some slack. Like, hey, we're still working on it. We'll be gods next week. Right now, it's okay that, you screwed up, buddy. It's fine. So once you get this basic premise of the universe down, you can really start to have more fun out of life. And as always, like I end these videos, that's really what I'm hoping for you guys, is to be able to enjoy life and have fun. So anyway, guys, that's it for me. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. That's the best way to get the newest videos. There's going to be tons more coming out. We should have a Source to Starseeds coming up tomorrow for December. But anyway, guys, take it easy and have fun out there. See you next time.